The small white chrysanthemum appeared on her workstation like a quiet question mark. No note, no explanation, just a single, perfect flower where none had been the night before. Lena Rowe arrived early to Sakura Breeze restaurant in Chicago, as she always did, preferring the peaceful moments before the day's chaos began. But this Tuesday morning felt different. Someone had been here. Someone who knew she would understand the meaning of that particular flower, a symbol of new beginnings in Japanese culture. What Lena didn't know was that the man who had left it was sitting at table 7, watching her discover it. And he had been searching for her for 3 long years. But first, she had a menu to fix. Let me tell you about the power of words and why they matter more than most people realize. Lena was 24, a shy girl in thick glasses serving tables at Sakura Breeze restaurant. What customers didn't know was that behind her quiet demeanor was a brilliant mind that spoke 5 languages fluently. A former linguistics scholarship student who had abandoned her dreams 3 years ago when her mother got sick. Before leaving university, she had written one final letter to her anonymous scholarship benefactor, thanking him for believing in her potential and promising she would never stop using language to help others. Now she was invisible, just another server in the world where brilliant minds hide behind uniforms. What Lena didn't know was that her letter had haunted someone for 3 years. Aiden Matsuoka, the CEO who had established the scholarship program, had kept her letter in his wallet as a reminder of why his work mattered. Her words weren't just grateful. They were wise, showing an understanding of language and humanity that most people never develop. When she disappeared, Aiden searched everywhere. Universities couldn't help due to privacy laws. She had no social media presence. 2 private investigators found nothing. The breakthrough came 6 weeks ago. While conducting undercover evaluations of his own restaurant chain, his 3rd investigator finally found a lead through medical insurance records. Lena's mother's treatment had left digital footprints. Lena Rowe was working as a part-time server at Sakura Breeze in Chicago. When Aiden received that phone call, he was 3 states away, evaluating a location in Milwaukee. He immediately changed his plans. The Chicago evaluation could wait, but seeing Lena again could not. He spent 2 weeks planning his approach. He couldn't simply walk in and reveal himself. 3 years of silence, followed by a sudden appearance from a benefactor she'd never met. It would seem manipulative, overwhelming. She might think he was checking up on her out of disappointment or judgment. So Aiden did what he always did when facing a complex problem. He observed first. He visited Sakura Breeze 5 times over 2 weeks, always sitting at different tables, always paying attention. He watched Lena work with the same careful precision she brought to her writing. He saw how she anticipated customers' needs, how she made the elderly Japanese woman at table 3 feel welcome with a slight bow and perfect pronunciation of arigato gozaimasu. He noticed how she stayed late to help the cleaning crew, how she never seemed impatient with difficult customers. On his 6th visit, sitting at table 7 near the window, Aiden decided it was time. But not for a dramatic revelation, for a simple test. If Lena was still the person who had written that letter, she would reveal herself through her actions. That morning, he left a single white chrysanthemum on her workstation before the restaurant opened. In Japanese culture, it meant new beginnings. If she understood its significance, he would know her connection to the language, and the culture was genuine. Lena found the flower and paused, touching its petals gently. She looked around the empty restaurant, puzzled but not alarmed. Then she did something that confirmed everything Aiden hoped. She placed the flower in a small cup of water and set it carefully beside the register where customers could see it, sharing the beauty instead of keeping it for herself. Then she noticed the new menus. The owner of the printing company had clearly run everything through translation software without a second thought. The descriptions were technically accurate, but emotionally tone-deaf. Miso soup for your sadness. Tempura, deep-fried happiness. Chicken teriyaki, sweet meat with sticky sauce. Aiden watched from table 7 as Lena's expression changed. First confusion, then dismay, then something that looked like personal offense. She glanced toward the kitchen, toward the manager's office, toward the customers who would soon arrive to read these words. Then she made a choice that changed everything. From her apron pocket, she pulled out a pen. Not the cheap ballpoint the restaurant provided, but her own, a simple black pen that wrote with the smooth confidence of someone who takes writing seriously. Carefully, respectfully, she began to revise. Miso soup, gentle warmth for your soul. Tempura, light, crispy moments of joy. Chicken teriyaki, tender comfort glazed with tradition. She worked with the concentration of someone who understood that words are not just information, they are invitations. Each correction was an act of hospitality, a bridge between the Japanese heart of the dish and the American diners who would experience it. From his table, Aiden felt something he hadn't experienced in years. The recognition of true artistry in unexpected places. This wasn't just translation, it was transformation. Here was a shy girl turning corporate descriptions into poetry, machine language into human connection. He pulled out his phone and took a photo. Not of Lena, but of her handwriting on the menu. Later, in his hotel room, he would compare it to the letter he carried. The gentle slope of her letters, the way she dotted her I's, the careful spacing that showed respect for each word. It was her. After 3 years, he had found a young woman whose potential had inspired him to expand the scholarship program from 50 recipients to 200. The person whose letter had reminded him why his restaurants existed, not just to serve food, but to create moments of connection between strangers. But before Aiden could decide how to approach her, the morning took an unexpected turn. Bob Martinez had been the manager at Sakura Breeze for 8 months. He was efficient, ambitious, and completely focused on the metrics that corporate headquarters tracked: table turnover, order accuracy, food costs. What he lacked was any understanding of the soul of hospitality. When Bob arrived that morning and saw the corrected menus, his reaction was swift and predictable. Who touched these? His voice carried across the restaurant, sharp with authority and annoyance. Lena looked up from setting tables, and Aiden saw something in her expression that broke his heart. Not fear, but resignation. The look of someone who had learned not to expect understanding. I made some small corrections, she said quietly. The translations were, "You made unauthorized changes to official restaurant materials," Bob interrupted. "Do you have any idea how much these menus cost to print? Do you have translation credentials? Marketing experience? Any qualifications whatsoever to make these decisions?" From table 7, Aiden watched this exchange with growing discomfort. He wanted to intervene immediately, but something held him back. He needed to see how this played out, needed to understand the full context of Lena's situation before he acted. "I speak Japanese," Lena said simply. The original translations didn't capture the spirit of the food. "You speak Japanese?" Bob's tone was skeptical and condescending. "Really? Where did you study? What certifications do you have?" Lena's cheeks flushed. "I studied it at university before I left school." "Self-taught, then?" "YouTube University." Bob shook his head. "This is exactly the kind of overstepping I've been talking about. You're a part-time server. Your job is to take orders and bring food. Period." What happened next would haunt Bob for years to come. Aiden stood up from table 7 and approached them. He was dressed simply, dark jeans, white button-down shirt, no obvious signs of wealth or authority. But something in his bearing made both Bob and Lena pay attention. "Excuse me," Aiden said, his voice calm but carrying unmistakable authority. "I couldn't help overhearing. I'm curious about these menu corrections." Bob immediately shifted into customer service mode. "Oh, don't worry about this, sir. Just a staff issue we're handling. I can get you a properly printed menu." "Actually," Aiden interrupted gently, "I'd like to see the corrections." Lena handed him the menu, her hands slightly trembling. Aiden studied her changes carefully, taking his time. The restaurant fell quiet except for the soft jazz playing overhead. "These are extraordinary," he said finally, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Whoever wrote these understands not just the language, but the cultural heart of Japanese cuisine." Bob frowned. "Sir, I appreciate your interest, but we have corporate standards." "Do you speak Japanese?" Aiden asked, his tone still pleasant, but with an edge that made Bob pause. Well, no, but do you understand the cultural significance of how food is described in Japanese hospitality? No, sir, but we have corporate guidelines. And who created those guidelines? Bob was beginning to look uncomfortable. Corporate headquarters. They have professional translation services. Professional services that produced for your sadness as a description for miso soup. The silence that followed was broken by the arrival of the morning's first customers, an elderly Japanese couple who came in every Tuesday. Aiden watched as Lena served them, bowing slightly as she greeted them in their native language. The woman's face lit up with delight and surprise. Ohayo gozaimasu. Kiwa nani ga oishi desu ka. Good morning. What's delicious today? Lena responded fluently, recommending the miso soup with a description that made the woman smile and nod enthusiastically. The interaction was brief but beautiful, a moment of authentic cultural connection that no corporate training manual could have produced. When Lena returned to their table, Aiden looked directly at Bob. I'd like to speak with whoever is in charge of this location. That would be me, sir. I'm the general manager. I see. Aiden pulled out his phone and opened the corporate website. And how long have you worked for Fusion Yaki Corporation? 8 months. It's a great company, excellent growth opportunities. Aiden turned his phone screen toward Bob. The corporate leadership page was displayed, showing executive photographs and biographies. Do you recognize anyone on this page? Bob squinted at the screen, then looked up at Aiden, then back at the screen. The color drained from his face as recognition dawned. The man in the corporate photo wore glasses and had a beard, but the bone structure was unmistakable. The same dark eyes, the same confident bearing. Mr. Matsuo? Bob's voice cracked slightly. Sir, you look so different. I had no idea. 8 months, Aiden said quietly. And in 8 months, have you ever wondered why this company exists? What our mission statement actually means when it talks about authentic cultural hospitality? Bob swallowed hard. Sir, I can explain. No explanation needed. I've been watching for the past 2 weeks. I've seen exactly how this location operates. Aiden gestured toward Lena, who was standing nearby, looking confused and increasingly uncomfortable. And today I've seen something remarkable. I've seen an employee care enough about our customer's experience to improve our materials on her own time, with her own expertise, asking for nothing in return. He turned to address the entire restaurant, staff and customers alike. This young woman just demonstrated more understanding of Japanese hospitality in 10 minutes than most of our locations show in a month. She saw translations that would make our Japanese customers feel unwelcome, and she fixed them. Not because it was her job, but because it was the right thing to do. Lena stared at Aiden, pieces beginning to click into place. The careful way he spoke, his obvious knowledge of the restaurant industry, the fact that he knew so much about Japanese culture. She began, then stopped, overwhelmed. I'm someone who has been looking for talent like yours for a very long time, Aiden said gently. And I'm someone who believes that the best employees aren't the ones who follow rules blindly, but the ones who understand the spirit behind the rules. He looked around the restaurant, at the customers who had stopped eating to listen, at the staff members who were watching with wide eyes. This corporation exists to create bridges between cultures through food, to make people feel welcomed and understood, regardless of where they come from. What Ms. Rowe did this morning is exactly what we should be doing at every location, every day. Bob was standing frozen, clearly trying to process the magnitude of his mistake. The other employees were looking between Lena and Aiden like spectators at a tennis match. Ms. Rowe, Aiden continued, would you be willing to stay after your shift today? I'd like to discuss something with you. Lena nodded, still too stunned to speak. Excellent. And Bob, Aiden's tone became businesslike. I'll need to see you in your office immediately. We have several things to discuss. As the drama unfolded, the elderly Japanese couple at table 3 approached Lena. The woman took her hands and spoke in rapid Japanese, her eyes bright with gratitude. Later, Aiden would learn what she had said. Thank you for making us feel seen. For the first time in America, someone has served us food described with respect for our culture. Sometimes the most important moments of our lives arrive, disguised as ordinary Tuesday mornings. Sometimes the recognition we've been waiting for comes not from those above us, but from those beside us who notice when we care more than we have to. And sometimes, just sometimes, the universe conspires to put the right person in the right place at exactly the moment when courage and kindness intersect. That afternoon, after the lunch rush had ended and the restaurant had settled into its quiet between-meal rhythm, Aiden and Lena sat at table 7, the same table where he had watched her work, where he had recognized the handwriting that had been haunting him for 3 years. Before we talk about anything else, Aiden said, I need you to understand something. This conversation is not about charity. It's not about feeling sorry for your circumstances. It's about recognizing exceptional talent that could transform how this entire corporation operates. Lena adjusted her glasses nervously. I don't understand why you're interested in me. I'm just a part-time server. You're a linguist who happens to be working as a server, Aiden corrected gently. There's a significant difference. He pulled out a folder from his briefcase. 3 years ago, I received a letter from a scholarship recipient, someone who was leaving university to care for her mother, but who promised to never stop using language to help others. He slid a photocopied letter across the table. Do you recognize this? Lena's hands trembled as she read her own words from 3 years ago. How did you? You're the scholarship benefactor. I established the program, yes. But more importantly, your letter changed how I thought about what we were trying to accomplish. You wrote about language being a bridge between hearts, not just minds. About how the right words could make a stranger feel like family. I've been searching for you for 3 years, Aiden continued. Not because I felt you owed me anything, but because I realized you understood something that most people in my industry don't. Hospitality isn't about efficiency. It's about recognition. It's about seeing each person who walks through our doors as a complete human being with their own story. Lena wiped tears from her eyes. I thought I had disappointed you. When I had to leave school, I thought, you thought wrong. Aiden's voice was firm but kind. You disappointed no one. You made a choice that showed exactly the kind of character I had hoped to find in our scholarship recipients. He opened another folder. For the past 6 weeks, since we found you, I've been watching how you work. Not as surveillance, but as, let's call it professional evaluation. Do you know what I've observed? Lena shook her head. I've watched you anticipate customers' needs before they express them. I've seen you make elderly diners feel dignified, families feel welcome, business travelers feel cared for. I've watched you de-escalate conflicts with grace and solve problems that weren't technically your responsibility. Most importantly, I've seen you do what you did this morning. Improve something because it wasn't good enough for the people you serve, even though no one asked you to, and no one would have blamed you for ignoring it. Aiden leaned forward. I want to offer you a position with Fusion Yaki Corporation. Not charity, not a favor. A job that matches your abilities. What kind of position? Language and cultural consultant. You would work with our menu development team to ensure that every description in every restaurant honors both the cultural origin of the dish and the dignity of our customers. You would help train staff in cultural sensitivity. You would be part of a small team tasked with making sure we're building bridges, not just serving food. Lena's eyes widened. But I don't have a degree. I don't have credentials in hospitality or business or... You have something more valuable, Aiden interrupted. You have understanding. You have the ability to see through the eyes of both cultures. You have instincts that can't be taught. The position would start as a 3-month consulting contract. Enough time for you to prove what I already believe, that you can revolutionize how we think about language and hospitality. If it works out, we'll discuss something more permanent. What would the pay be? Aiden named a figure that was triple what Lena earned as a server. Her sharp intake of breath told him everything he needed to know about her financial situation. There's one more thing, he added. The position would include health insurance. Comprehensive coverage, including experimental treatments. Lena's composure finally broke completely. 3 years of carrying the weight of her mother's illness. 3 years of choosing between her dreams and her family. 3 years of believing she had disappointed the one person who had seen her potential. Why? she whispered through her tears. Why would you do this? Because 3 years ago, a young woman taught me that talent often hides in unexpected places. That the people who care most deeply about doing things right are often the ones in positions where no one expects them to care at all. And because this morning, that same young woman proved that she still believes words matter. That hospitality matters. That making strangers feel welcome matters more than following rules or avoiding responsibility. Aiden stood up and extended his hand. So, Ms. Rowe, are you interested in helping us build bridges between cultures, one menu at a time? Lena looked at his outstretched hand, then around the restaurant where she had been invisible for so long. She thought about her mother, about the bills stacking up, about the dream she had set aside. She thought about the elderly Japanese couple that morning, and how their faces had lit up when someone finally spoke to them in their own language. Yes, she said, taking his hand. Yes, I am. The transformation didn't happen overnight. Real change never does. Lena's first month was spent learning the business side of the restaurant industry. She attended meetings with marketing teams who had never considered the emotional impact of their word choices. She worked with graphic designers who thought authentic meant using the right font. She collaborated with corporate trainers who taught efficiency but not empathy. It was challenging, sometimes frustrating work. The corporate world operated at a different pace than the intimate environment of a single restaurant. Decisions required approval from multiple departments. Changes had to be tested and measured and justified with data. But gradually, steadily, Lena's influence began to spread. The menu project started small. 5 test locations, including Sakura Breeze, received new menus written with Lena's guidance. The descriptions were longer than corporate typically allowed, more poetic than standard marketing copy. The results were immediate and undeniable. Customer satisfaction scores increased. Dining duration extended. People lingered longer, ordered more, returned more frequently. Most importantly, the comments cards began telling stories instead of just rating service. The way you described the ramen made me order it, and it reminded me of a soup my grandmother used to make. I brought my Japanese father-in-law to dinner, and he was so moved by your menu that he actually smiled. He said it showed respect. I've never seen food descriptions that made me feel welcomed before I even ordered. By month 3, Lena was traveling to other locations, training staff not just in language but in cultural awareness. She taught servers to recognize when customers were celebrating, mourning, nervous about a first date, or struggling with English as a second language. She developed what became known as the Lena Protocols, simple guidelines that helped staff provide hospitality that felt personal rather than scripted. Notice before you speak. Listen before you suggest. Serve the person, not just the order. Remember that every customer is someone's beloved. Treat them accordingly. Your words are ingredients too. Choose them with the same care as the chef chooses spices. 6 months after that Tuesday morning confrontation, Lena stood in front of the International Restaurant Association's annual conference. She was no longer the shy server who corrected menus in secret. She was still quiet, still thoughtful. But now her voice carried the confidence of someone who had found her true calling. A year ago, she began, I was fired for caring too much about words. Today, I want to tell you why every word in your restaurant matters more than your spreadsheets might suggest. The conference presentation changed everything, but not in the way you might expect. Lena didn't become a celebrity or a keynote speaker in high demand. She didn't write a best-selling book or start a consulting empire. Instead, she did something more powerful. She started a quiet revolution. Restaurant owners and managers approached her after the presentation with stories of their own invisible employees. The dishwasher who spoke 4 languages, the hostess who had a degree in anthropology, the delivery driver who was a retired teacher. People who had been overlooked not because they lacked talent, but because their talents didn't fit conventional expectations. Within a year, Fusion Yaki Corporation had established the Hidden Talents Initiative, a program designed to identify and develop the unexpected abilities of existing employees. Servers became cultural liaisons. Cooks became menu consultants. Managers learned to look beyond job descriptions to see human potential. But the real measure of Lena's impact wasn't in corporate programs or industry awards. It was in the letters that arrived weekly at Fusion Yaki headquarters. I'm a teenage hostess in Portland. I rewrote our chalkboard descriptions using her guidelines, and yesterday a customer cried because she said it was the first time in months someone had made her feel like she mattered. I'm a manager in Detroit. I stopped looking at my staff as role fillers and started seeing them as people with stories. We discovered our part-time server speaks 3 languages and has been helping non-English speaking customers without us even knowing. I'm a cook in Memphis. Your presentation inspired me to start explaining the cultural history of our dishes to servers. Now our customers feel like they're learning, not just eating. 2 years after she corrected that first menu, Lena received a letter that brought her tears. It was from a young man in San Francisco. Dear Ms. Rowe, I'm a busboy at a small family restaurant. I've been invisible for 3 years, but I watch everything. I notice when the elderly woman at table 6 orders tea because she's lonely, not thirsty. I see when the businessman at table 12 eats alone because his family is across the country. Yesterday, I asked my manager if I could help with customer service. I told her I want to make people feel less alone while they eat. She said yes. Today was my first day as a server, and I made 4 people smile just by noticing them. Thank you for teaching me that caring isn't a weakness, it's a superpower. That letter hangs in Lena's office now, next to her mother's medical discharge papers, marked treatment successful, and next to the original menu she corrected that Tuesday morning, now framed and signed by every employee who has gone through the Hidden Talents program. But the possession she treasures most is simpler. A small white chrysanthemum, dried and pressed between the pages of a book. The flower that started everything. The flower that taught her that sometimes the universe sends signals in the smallest gestures. Every Tuesday morning, Lena still arrives early at the original Sakura Breeze location. She's now the vice president of cultural hospitality for the entire corporation, but she keeps this ritual as a reminder of where it all began. She sits at table 7, Aiden's old table, and writes letters. Letters to employees who feel invisible. Letters to managers who need to learn to see. Letters to anyone who has ever wondered if their small acts of kindness matter. She signs them all the same way her mysterious benefactor once signed letters to her. From someone who believes your gift can touch hearts you cannot imagine. Last month, a young woman approached her during one of these writing sessions. She was wearing a server's uniform and thick glasses, and she moved with the careful quiet of someone who had learned to make herself small. Excuse me, the young woman said. Are you Lena Rowe? I am. I corrected some menu translations at my restaurant yesterday. My manager said I was overstepping my boundaries. But I read about your story online, and I thought, maybe it wasn't wrong to care. Lena smiled and gestured to the empty chair across from her. Sit down. Tell me about your corrections. As the young woman shared her story, about translations that missed the heart of the food, about customers who deserved better, about feeling invisible while caring deeply, Lena felt the beautiful weight of recognition. This is how change happens, not through grand gestures or corporate mandates, but through one person caring enough to do something small and right, then inspiring another person to do the same. The young woman's name was Maria, and she spoke 3 languages fluently while working part-time to support her family. By the end of their conversation, Lena had her phone number and a promise to visit her restaurant the following week. Some stories end with weddings or promotions or dramatic transformations. This story ends with something quieter but more powerful. The understanding that every act of genuine care creates ripples we may never see. Lena never did marry Aiden, though they became deep friends and collaborative partners. She never became famous outside the restaurant industry, though her influence spread to thousands of establishments worldwide. She never returned to finish her linguistics degree, though she probably knows more about the practical application of language than most professors. What she did do was prove that talent often hides in the most unexpected places, that the people who care most deeply about doing things right are often the ones in positions where no one expects them to care at all. That small acts of kindness, when they come from genuine understanding, can transform entire industries. And that sometimes, when we pick up a pen to correct something that's wrong, we're not just fixing words, we're fixing the world, one small gesture at a time. Today, if you visit any fusion yaki restaurant anywhere in the world, you'll find something printed at the bottom of every menu, prepared with gentle warmth for your soul. Most guests assume it's just a tagline. But if you ask the right server, one who has been through the hidden talents training, they might tell you the real story. About a shy young woman who saw translated words that weren't worthy of the food they described. About a CEO who recognized talent hiding behind thick glasses and a server's uniform. About the beautiful truth that we're all just one act of caring away from changing someone's entire world. Because in the end, the most powerful force in the universe isn't money or technology or corporate strategy. It's the decision to see people as they truly are, not as their circumstances suggest. It's the choice to care when caring isn't required. It's the quiet courage to pick up a pen and write something better, even when no one has asked you to. Some words feed the body, but the right words, chosen with love and respect, feed the soul. And in a world that often feels cold and impersonal, that might be the most important meal of all.